I don't view it as we're being paid to do a job so much as we're being paid for what we're willing to do. I don't know anybody in the career that wouldn't lay down their life, either for a brother or sister in the job or just a complete stranger. That's who we are. So it was early morning when we got the call. It came in as a structure fire. And as I navigated my way across the floor, which was covered with ceiling that had collapsed, I was not able to see the maintenance pit that was about 6 feet deep into the concrete. That first thought was, this is where I'm going to die. I'm going to die here tonight. Quickly followed by, this is going to be hard on my kids. I know it was about 10 seconds before Steve jumped in the pit to help me out. I remember him sticking his hand out and saying, hey, we're going to get you out of here. Let's go. I don't think it ever dawned on me in the moment that it could be career ending. It wasn't until a good couple of weeks into physical therapy, knowing how much pain I was in, that if I can never get back on the truck, it's going to change how I do everything.
The time and the efforts that they sacrifice, the lack of sleep, the physical exertion, but then to watch the community rally around them when they need it. There's just no amount of words that could express just how valued that is by us.
The ability to retire means that at the end of a long, physically demanding career, mentally taxing career, it means that we can step back and begin to enjoy all the things that we missed.
This is A Silent War Within, the podcast dedicated to confronting the unseen mental health battles carried by our first responder and healthcare heroes. This show is about real stories, real struggles, and real ways to survive the storm and come out stronger on the other side. For too long, stigma has kept you silent, but this is your space to bravely break that silence, share vital insights, and build a community where your well-being truly comes first, because your service deserves unwavering support.
Wow, what an amazing and moving video to open up the podcast. We have got a very special guest today. As always, I have to say that about every guest because every guest I feel like is special, but this one I have a history with. So this is even better for me because I've known Jason for a while. He is also the creator of A Note from Dad on all the social media platforms. He does an excellent job there. We love his content, but he's also had a long career in the fire service. So Jason, tell us a little bit about what got you into this profession, how it went, and just your career so far.
Yeah, so I joined the fire service in 1996 as a volunteer, and I did that for about 3 years before I got hired in 98. And really what pulled me into the fire service in general was the 6 Kansas City guys that died in the explosion back in, I don't remember the year. I want to say it was the early 90s, maybe 80s, late 80s. Had to have been late 80s because I graduated high school in 1991. Southwest Missouri, about an hour and a half south of where that happened. And I remember prior to that, I didn't really have firefighter on my radar. At the time, I wanted to be an ER doctor. And then I started realizing how much schooling that was going to be, and that's not my thing. So I pivoted. And I pivoted into law enforcement. I wanted to be a police officer. And then I realized I'm not a runner. So running, I'm not chasing bad guys. So that's not gonna last long. So, and then the Kansas City 6 guys all died in one explosion. And the turnout for that funeral, that memorial service for those 6 guys, seeing them, I don't know that they filled Arrowhead Stadium, but I feel like at the time, my memory is they came pretty close. And regardless, seeing tens of thousands of strangers show up for the opportunity to honor and remember those individuals from all across the country, across the world. There were people from Australia and all across from different countries that came to honor them. And seeing that, I knew that I wanted to be a part of that, because that brotherhood, that's just something bigger than myself that I wanted to be a part of. And that's that calling to really just that, to be a part of something bigger than ourselves.
That's amazing. As well, vaguely remember hearing about that throughout my volunteer fire service that I did for a little bit, and some of the classes and things that gets brought up. And, you go through hearing line of duty deaths, and those were one of the ones that were talked about by some of the older guys. So I do remember pieces of that. I don't know all the details to it, but I certainly remember pieces of that. That's an awesome story. So back in 2012, you and I ran an EMS page called EMS for Christ, and one of the things you've been very vocal about on your platforms is your Christian faith. We as well share that. So how do you think your Christian faith has served you as a foundation to face some of the things that are horrible and terrible and the things nightmares are made of throughout your career?
Yeah, so full disclosure, having first accepted Christ as a youth, I walked away from that moving into college, my college years. I adopted a belief that, once saved, always saved. It didn't matter how I live now, I'm good to go, right?
Fire insurance.
Yeah, exactly. Clearly that's not, what Christ calls us to. And so 9/11 happens in 2001, and I'm a new dad. We just adopted our daughter. She's a little baby. And 9/11 happens, and my wife and I are driving across the state, and I remember having a conversation wherein I felt like I remember saying to her, like, at the time we'd been married for 8 years, and we had not really had a single conversation about faith, about God, about church, about how we're going to raise our family when we have a family, what we believe. None of that in 8 years. It's a truly God thing that we survived those 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was living pretty selfishly, and she says the same about her, but clearly I was the one that was selfish. So we have that first conversation in the car driving across the state to go visit parents in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. I remember saying to her, I was raised in a Christian home by parents who took us to church 3 times a week. And I didn't want to stand before God someday and say, Jason, you're right. Welcome into the kingdom of heaven, because once saved, always saved. You didn't live the life that I wanted you to live, but you put your trust and your faith in me. So welcome to the kingdom of heaven. But your kids can't come because you never introduced them to me. So that was the impetus for our return back to church. And really it took 2.5 years for me to open up, for God to open up the heart and to peel back the layers of that hardened shell and that onion. So for the first, having started my career in 98, it wasn't until 2005. So a good 8 to 9 years of being in the career without that foundation. I wasn't living the life of a Christian. I had the foundation, the core tenets were there, but I wasn't living the life. And so stepping back into my faith in 2005, as I recommitted my life to Christ, honestly, I found a lot of struggle shaking that old life that I had been living in the firehouse, because I'd been going out drinking with the guys, doing all the things type A dudes do, going to the strip clubs, married, going to the strip clubs, doing those things that never once stepped outside the marriage physically, but emotionally. I wasn't connected to my wife prior to 2005 in the way that Christ calls us to be. And so I really struggled coming back into my faith within the fire service. And for a long time, I compartmentalized the two. I separated them. I was Jason the firefighter, and then starting to serve in ministry. And it took us several years for me to become confident in sharing who I am outside of the firehouse. Truly, now that I've changed. So now that I have, for me, it's guys just know. And the not the expectation, but the reality now is when guys have difficulty in their personal life, I have guys call me up and say, "Hey, how do you deal with this? Like, I know you're a Christian. I don't really believe, or I believe, but I don't want to. I'm kind of riding the fence, or I'm not really vocal about it. This is what, how are you coping with this? How are you dealing with the trauma, the stress, whatever? How are you finding the balance with the family?" And they've slowly, over the last probably 10 to 15 years, started to seek me out for some of that advice. So it's been a full circle relationship in incorporating my faith into my firehouse journey.
That's really dynamic, and I never thought about it the way that you just said. You can get to heaven and God will say, yeah, you're right. Once saved, always saved. Welcome to the kingdom. But your kids can't come because you never. That's really kind of something I had not thought about. I don't, I don't have that problem. My children have been raised in church too. But, for those listening, is such a eye-opening statement that he made, that we can get in if we have the fire insurance. But, if you don't introduce people to Christ, some folks are going to miss it, and your kids may be those people. So I really appreciate you saying that. I've never thought about it like that, and what an excellent way to witness to somebody in that way. So I appreciate that. Did you ever have any moments throughout the fire service that your faith was really tested after you kind of got the two personalities together and everybody kind of knew that you were a Christ follower? Did you have any calls or times where you were really tested in your faith because of the things we see and do?
So for me, it's interesting because when I think back to our connection in 2012 through the EMS for Christ page, I hadn't correlated until we started prepping for this show that 2012 was really about the time that I started to notice that I think I got a problem. Like, I think there's something going on internally that I don't know how to process. I was becoming more aware of PTSD and its symptoms. It took me till about 2019 so 7 years to truly say, I got a problem. I need to talk. I need some help. I don't know how to get out of this. I want to fix it. I want to show up healthier for my family, but I don't know how to do that. And 2019 for me was that pivotal year because it was probably the most cumulative trauma over the course of 12 months that I recall. I go back to my first couple of days on the job. There was trauma, and we just locked it down and we moved on. And as 2019 came around, I had, in the span of just a couple months, we did a confined space body recovery in a hazardous material explosive environment. So fully bunked out in gear, SCBA, and then strapped into a rappelling harness, lowered into a confined space that's really built for two people. That's built for one person. They picked the two biggest guys on the scene. And of course, they picked us, right? They pretty much said, "Hey, do you want to?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure," because I'm not gonna be the weak guy. So I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'm trained for it. Let's go. Let's get this done." And for me, that was, I had nightmares. That was the first time I remember having nightmares, feeling trapped, feeling stuck, feeling like I just can't get out of whatever it is. That immediately, within a couple of rotations, followed a day where we had two fatality MVAs back to back, like within 12 hours, traumatic ones. And then within a month, the one that finally broke the straw for me was, it's the first time at the time, I guess, 20 some odd years that I had ever physically done mouth to mouth. I put my lips on another person's lips outside of my wife or my immediate family and blew my breath into her lungs. It's a little baby. She died at in the babysitter's care, and that was the first time I prayed over a patient all the way to the hospital. I just remember really praying, "God, you got this. God, you got her. God, please," just pouring out and it was not internal praying. I was saying it out loud. I wasn't saying it loud enough to disrupt the crew in the ambulance, but I was saying it loud enough that they heard me. And then when she didn't make it, right before I left the ER, mom came in, and witnessing that on top of all the effort that we put into trying to save her that was too much. I broke down and I lost it. Not in front of her. It was in the truck on the way home, back to the station. And that was the call going back to the firehouse. It started out, it was about a 20-minute drive to get back to the station. And the first 10 minutes was complete silence. For type A guys that are typically roughhousing and joking and cutting up and talking about everything under the sun, mostly inappropriate stuff in the cab of a fire truck. It's complete silence. And I reached a point. I'm usually pretty comfortable with silence. I'm okay with silence. I just reached a point where I couldn't, because the internal dialogue was too much to bear alone. And so I finally just said, "Hey, I'm not okay." That's what broke the silence, was me saying, I'm not okay. I don't know. I will be, but I'm not right now. And so that for me was the call that really was like, it's time to go get some help. And then shortly after that, the other call that year that really just reiterated I've got a problem was a close call. It's the video I sent you, falling into that and truly for maybe 5 seconds thinking this is where I'm going to die tonight. It's 4:00 in the morning, but this is where I'm going to die tonight. That was the first thought on my mind, followed by, this is going to be really hard on my boys. That was 10 seconds, right? Like as soon as I found my footing within that pit, I was able to realize, hey, this is not where I'm going to die tonight. I'm fine. Let's get out of here. But it's amazing what the body, the mind, the psyche, and that whole thing, like all of that interwebbed together, how it plays tricks on you. Even thinking for the context of 5 seconds, hey, I'm going to die here tonight. This is going to really be hard on my kids. That's traumatic. It's 5 seconds of trauma. And I had a really hard time as I started seeing therapists dealing with the fact that, not the fact, but dealing with the belief, the misnomer that trauma, PTSD is only for veterans of combat. And
I used to say the same thing.
Yeah. I had a really hard time with that. And my therapist is a Navy veteran, right? So I just had a really hard time coming to grips with the fact that I don't deserve to have PTSD.
Right.
And as he broke it down for me and just truly explained how trauma is processed in the brain as a funnel, and as all of our experiences come together, we can only process one thing at a time. And when we cumulatively put so much in the funnel and we don't process the little trauma, those little T's, then the big T's get stuck, and you have to get to the first one that's stuck and unstuck that one before you can begin to work on the next one and the next one and the next one. And through that's where, through therapy, it took probably a good 4 years before I hit the point where I realized that truly what was stuck for me was a call that I ran within the first couple of months on the job that I just locked down and forgot about.
Yeah.
So, Jason,
Go ahead.
sorry, Kevin. Do you feel like in the fire service, definitely there's like a culture of that tough guy, don't talk about it culture, we're all okay until we're not okay type of thing? Do you feel like one of those instances was really the turning point for you to see, like, there's a crack in my armor, I can't be this tough guy all the time, something's got to change?
Yeah, I think for me it was baby T. That was the one. My kids were still young, and I think we hear it all the time from first responders. It's dark to say this, but I'm going to say it because it's the reality of what we do. When an old person dies, doing CPR on an 80-year-old person is like, if they don't make it, well, they lived a life, right? Like I don't wish that death upon anybody, so I'll say that. Like but internally we process that differently than we process a baby dying at 3 months old. And I just really had a hard time with that one specifically because I remember physically pouring my prayer and my heart out to God the first time I prayed over a patient, and I felt like God let me down. I felt like his answer was no, it's not meant for her to survive. And I just had a really hard time processing through that. And then you want to talk about some self-deprecating, self-sabotaging behavior. I put that anniversary in my phone. Like, who does that, right? Like, for 2 years, every time that name came up, I'm like, oh my God, that's right. Like, how unhealthy is that? But that's what we do. I mean, not what we do. We don't necessarily, I don't know anybody else that does that, but that's what we do. We beat ourselves up.
Yeah.
And, when we think it's our fault, I could have done something different. I should have done something different. Did I do compressions right? I haven't done compressions on an infant in so long. Maybe I did something wrong. I don't know what that could be, so yeah, just that was the one for me that really broke that down. And it was also the one for me that opened up conversations, genuine conversations, because, we do the critical incident stress debriefings. We go back to the firehouse and we have the tailboard conversations and the firehouse kitchen conversations. But for so many years, those conversations, and I still see them today, they have a tendency to be pretty superficial. Like we don't really scratch. We might scratch the surface, but we don't pull the surface back and dig down into it and root out what's truly going on. Because weakness, right? I mean, that's what you talked about, like weakness in the fire service, for the first responder community. I don't want somebody sitting beside me that's weak. Speaking of generalities, right? And we see mental health as a weakness. And that's not isolated to the first responder community. Our culture in general still sees mental health as a weakness, and there's still that stigma that's wrapped around it.
And Jason, just to add to your point, as nurses, as a patient codes, they do like a huddle or like a debriefing right after it happens. But in that moment, your fight or flight is still there. So you're not able to like actually dig deep and figure out those issues that you're going through or debrief in your mind because your fight or flight is still there. So that's a good point. When you do those debriefings right in the moment, you can't get deep. You haven't even processed just what just happened. That's a good point.
Yeah, so the struggle there then becomes, because we don't process it correctly in the immediate aftermath, what happens at the end of the shift, at the end of the tour? We go home and we still haven't processed it. And we don't know how to confront our family because we still don't know how to confront ourselves and to look ourselves in the mirror and process through and so that's the strain in the marriage. That's the stress in the relationship with the kids. That's where it all starts, is our inability to process it in a timely manner really doesn't provide us the space to come home and have healthy relationships.
Was there a moment that made you start therapy? Like, was there a time that you said, yeah, this is it. This is when I need to start therapy? Like, how did you know?
So it was immediately after Baby T. When I came home, so I had the blog. I started the blog, A Note from Dad, back in 2011. And that whole space for me was really intended, like I had a couple close calls on the highway in that year. And I felt like walking away from those close calls with two young boys at the time, man, if I were to die here doing what I do, I want my boys to know who I was through my own words. And I've always enjoyed writing. I've always been told I'm a pretty good writer. I've never received those compliments, but I'm starting to now. As a best-selling author, I'm starting to finally maybe I got something. I don't know. If I do, it's all God. But 2011, I start this blog and I'm writing notes to my kids. And in 2019, when those back-to-back traumatic calls all started to process through my brain, found that my writing was becoming pretty dark. It was reflective of the depression and the darkness that I had going on in here. And I realized I don't want my kids I don't want this to be my legacy on the website. Like I'm okay sharing it. Like I want them to know that what I do is traumatic and it's stressful and it impacts me emotionally because it changes how I might show up for you, because I need that space. And I want them to understand that to some degree. Same for my wife, especially now that my 18-year-old wants to be a flight medic. So it's like, hey man, nobody told me what I was getting into. I want you to know what you're getting into. I'm not telling you don't do it, because the world needs amazing first responders and amazing flight medics. And somebody has to do that. Somebody gets to do that from a perspective of a believer that, in Christ. So I want him to do those things, but I want him to go into it prepared. So 2019 happens. And as that writing space started to turn really dark, I just shut it down. I'm like, I can't. I don't. There's still a whole lot. There's probably a whole book within that blog space that is private that I don't know that anybody outside of me is ever going to see it. Maybe someday, but for now, it's still there, and it's sometimes there's therapy just in writing what's going on in our brain and in our mind and in our heart, and just us and God knows it. It's kind of like a prayer. Only God knows our heart, and so. That was really the moment, was coming back from Baby T's call. I take that back. It was right after her. So she died, I think, in the fall, early fall. Thankfully, I don't remember it anymore, the date, because I deleted the anniversary from my calendar. Thanksgiving came around, And I remember laying in the bed at the firehouse, knowing that it's Thanksgiving and knowing that her parents are celebrating their first Thanksgiving as a family without their family complete. I'm just laying there, like literally crying in bed. And I woke up, I came home that morning, and I'm like, I don't know who, but I need somebody. And that's when I started reaching out to find somebody to walk me through that therapy.
I'm sure that really solidified your walk with Christ too. Just having to have that, that relationship with Christ to make it through, along with therapy and other means too. But
yeah, absolutely. And I'm blessed that my therapist comes from a faith background that's similar to mine. And I'm blessed, honestly, that he took me on as a patient, because when I called him, I still don't remember how I found him, but when I called him, and he's like, yeah, I'm not really taking any new patients. And as we talked briefly on the phone, he's like, you know what, come on in for an initial consult. Can you come in tomorrow or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, I'll make it work, whatever. I got stuff going on, but I'll pivot, because I recognize this is important. And I'm glad I did, because he's like, yeah, I don't have room for any additional patients right now, but I'm going to make the room for you. So, and I've been seeing him now for, 6 years.
Yeah. So just to jump in here, there's something that you mentioned, and I've seen my therapist for the last 3. It took me about, 2017. I had a pediatric drowning and just buried it and didn't do anything with it. And it just bothered me to the point where I finally had this big, massive anger explosion at home on my wife and child and everybody involved. And that's when I started reaching out for help, and have been in therapy for 3 years, and I'm a big advocate for people reaching out for help when help's needed. But one of the other things you said that I want to kind of adjust to a little bit, and I don't need firefighter Jason. I need note from dad Jason.
All right.
So my 15-year-old daughter now says that she wants to be a paramedic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, are you sure? Can you reconsider that? So, because, and I tell her all the time, because she loves that show Night Watch, and I think that's kind of what it kind of started from. And I'm like, yes, that's pretty realistic, but it's heavier than what they make it out to be. Like, they're scars you're going to carry from this job for the rest of your life if you pursue this. And I don't know if I'm approaching this right. So I need note from dad.
All right. For me, and it's still a conversation I'm learning how to have with my 18-year-old, and he's technically an adult now, so I should be able to sit him down and have, man-to-man, heart-to-hearts. I think sometimes men, fathers, dads, we tend to treat our daughters with a little more glass hand. I don't know what the word is. I can't think of it.
You're exactly
what I'm
right.
talking about. Like, we don't treat our little baby girls the same way we treat our boys, for a reason, right? Like, we're raising them different, and that's perfectly okay. That's the way it should be. Man, I think for me, my conversations with him really just center around my vulnerability. It would be a challenge, I think, to do that with a 15-year-old daughter, to share with her some of the trauma that I've seen,
Right.
and to get into those details. I think you just keep the conversation going and saying, hey, you remember? So she's 15 now. How old was she in 2017? Help me with the math.
6 years old.
So she might not remember. That's tough. Like, my question would be like, hey, do you remember when I was coming home and I was irritable? I was, filling the blanks for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For me, it was, I was coming home irritable. I was disconnected. I stopped playing with you in the front yard. That day I started saying no when you asked if I'd go play catch, or, all those little things that we think back through and that we would want to do different now. She has that stored somewhere within her, whether she remembers it consciously or unconsciously. And then you just have that conversation wrapped around like, okay, well, that's because of this. That's because that year I ran this pediatric drowning call, and that really affected how I show up as a person. And it's not that I don't want you to be a paramedic or to do what you want to do. I just want you to go into it knowing that there is an emotional, sorry, I laugh because of the meme, emotional damage. Sorry. I go on squirrels all the time.
Yeah.
But there's an emotional we just want them to know that there's that emotional trauma and pain and injury. That's the word I'm looking for. The emotional injury that happens that we can't see. I take that back. We can see it if we're looking for it correctly, because it does manifest itself in ways that we can look and go, man, what's going on there? And have that conversation. But it's not like a broken leg. It's not like we can look at it and go, yeah, he's got a broken leg. So yeah, that's a tough one. You gotta, and as she ages, maybe as she gets closer to 18 and she's really starting to move into that direction, and your conversations have been unsuccessful, successful, however you want to phrase that, right? If she's still stubborn and moving down that pathway, then it's maybe the kid gloves come off a little bit.
Yeah.
And you really unpack some of your trauma for her and let her know, hey, this is exactly what I did, and just let her have it. Because it's not that, again, unless your genuine passion is to say, I really don't want her in this career field. If that's the case, I would caution you to, you gotta watch that one with kid gloves too, because that's the reverse psychology of parenting, and it, right? As soon as I say no, it's going to be like, oh, Dad said no, I'm definitely doing it now.
Yeah,
right?
That's exactly right.
Yes. So that's a balance, man. There's not necessarily in my mind, a right or wrong answer there. I think it's just,
and I
it's all
want
about
her
communication.
I want her to pursue what she wants to do, because I have loved this profession from the moment I stepped in an ambulance. It was been my favorite, has served me well, has got me into a high leadership position, which is fantastic. But like, it was a journey to get there. It was a 20-year journey to get to where I am now. And it has a lot of road bumps, and I don't want her to come in misinformed and think that this is going to be a cakewalk, because it's definitely not. There is no cakes. There's a lot of walking, but no cakes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, she's gonna have to. I think that's the hard thing about parenting. We want to protect our kids from pain, from hurt, from trauma, from loss, from death, from all those things. We want to shield them. We want to cover them, and we want to keep them safe from all of that. The reality is they're not going to grow into the people that God wants them to be without some of that, especially if she's pursuing a faith and following Christ. I mean, Christ himself said, man, look what they did to me. They're going to come and do the same thing to you too. And we're living in a day and age where I think that's going to continue to get worse. Well, that's a whole nother podcast. So,
and I said this on another podcast that I did, where we broke down the Sermon on the Mount. We're still in the middle of it. I podcast with another guy where we do a Bible-based man podcast. But one of the things that I said that he took away that was really eye-opening for him, I made the statement that the lilies of the valley and the grass in the valley are always the greenest, because that's where the most growth happens. Sometimes our biggest growth comes in those valleys. Sometimes life around us looks like just teetotal crap everywhere else, but that's when we're reaching out to God, and he's fueling us, and he's walking through that with us.
Yeah, the best way I ever had heard that explained to me that I just love is, we know joy because we know pain. We enjoy the mountaintop because we've been through the valley. We know and bask in love because we understand what it feels like to be hated. All those things, right? So they make them all the better. The mountaintop is all the better because of the valley. And the love we finally experience. I talk about that with divorced dads through my coaching. The love that you're going to experience someday is going to be all the much better for the valley that you're in right now.
Oh, I feel that. Yeah,
Jason,
I'm a divorced dad that experienced exactly what you just said. The love that I have now is wild comparatively.
can I ask you a personal question, Jason?
Absolutely.
If you don't mind, can you explain, Kevin sent me a little blurb about your family life. Can you just kind of explain your family dynamics to everyone on the podcast?
Oh, yeah, okay, here we go. So, married 32 years to the same amazing woman. I don't know how we survived the first date. Truly, I don't. She's been with me since we were young. I was 20. She was 19 when we got married. Just an amazing journey with her. She's been, I cannot give her enough credit. She's walked through the fire with me. She's pushed me through the fire. She's pulled me through the fire. She's met me on the other side of the fire. Not just in my career, but in life and in ministry, in leading a successful ministry through church, through moving across the state. Regardless of it, she's been there with it, and through it all, and encouraging and we were not supposed to get pregnant. This is a God story, right? This is cool. We were not supposed to be able to get pregnant, and I knew that going into our marriage. When I joined the fire department in 98, we tried the fertility route unsuccessfully for a good year-ish. Saw some setbacks in that, and we pivoted to, she had a dream. She just had herself a dream that she woke up one day and she says, I'm meant to be a mom, and I think we're supposed to go be foster parents. And so, yeah, that's what we did. I'm like, okay, I'm not, you talk about being scared. That was my leap of faith. Like, I don't know the first thing about foster. That's a whole nother area or arena of parenting. So we did. We went through the training. We got certified as foster parents. We had several babies. You want to talk about how cumulative trauma affects our memory. I'm convinced we had like 3 babies before we adopted our first. She's like, no, it was 1, maybe 2. I don't remember now. But we had several foster babies, all babies. I was very clear. I wanted younger babies. I didn't want to deal with teenagers that weren't mine. At the time, I was still too young. In fact, I told her I wasn't far enough removed from being a kid myself, so I don't want to deal with teenage drama yet. And Stephanie was born in 1999. She came to us through the foster care system in April of 2000, March or April. She had a hole in her heart when she was born. She had VSD, ventricular septal defect, so she had a hole between the septum of her heart. And for the first 11 months of her life, she just laid there. That's all she could do. Her body literally had no other energy or ability to do anything other than pump blood to the body. We used to always joke as we could lay her on the floor on a blanket, and we'd come back 8 hours later and she'd still be in the same spot. She just wouldn't move. So that's why she came into foster care system. It's because her mom had some developmental delays. She couldn't keep up her medicine regimen. She needed the meds to keep her alive. 15 months after we took her in, the way foster care system works is they work for 12 months to reunify with biological parents. So that's their goal for 12 months. At 12 months and 1 day, here in Missouri anyway, back then, at 12 months and 1 day, if reunification with parents hasn't happened or there's not significant progress towards that, then they shift that to finding a permanent family. And so we adopted her on April 15th, tax day of 2001. Let's think here. And then she was roughly 7-ish when we went back to the foster care system. I thought our family was, relatively complete. And my wife came back. She's like, no, we're meant to have another kiddo. And we adopted Dan when he was 11. He was born in 93, so whatever year that was, help me do the math. 95, no, 93, 05. 05-ish, we adopted him. And we had a really good first couple of years. We call it the honeymoon period. We had a good 2 years. And then a lot of his past started to come up for him, and he was dealing with 11 years being raised by his biological parents. So he had a really strong connection to them. And through no fault of his own, that I look back on it, the next 4 years here with us was very tumultuous. When he turned 17, on his 17th birthday, he walked out the door and never came back. And we knew that was going to happen because I'd already had the conversations. Like, he'd already told us, hey, the SRO at the school resource officer, at the school says, once I'm 17, I can do whatever I want. And so I did the research, talked to a couple officers, and they're like, yeah, pretty much that's right. Like, at 17, he's still legally yours. You have to report him missing. And if we're not going to go find him though, at 16, we're going to go pull all the stops out to go find him. At 17, and we did that once when he ran away at 16. And at 17, they don't go search for him, but if they find him, they'll bring him back to us. And so, shortly after we adopted him, we got pregnant. Going back to like the whole reason we're in the foster care system and adopting was because we weren't supposed to get pregnant. And that's the God story part of it. It's just a reminder that God is the ultimate physician, and that these guys and gals here on earth are truly just practicing, right? So now we have two biological sons that are 16 and 18 now. They're both still at the house here, at home here with us. And then roughly 10 years ago, my older brother stepped out on his family. And so we kind of took in my niece as a bonus kiddo. She's in her 30s now. when she goes back and watches this later, she's gonna be like, "I'm 30. What I don't know. You're 30, whatever." She's right. She's I barely know how old I am. Anyway, she's married now to an awesome dude who had a previous relationship and previous marriage. Came into this relationship with a daughter. So Scooter, she's awesome. Scoot's pretty cool. So yeah, technically I'm a step grandparent. Poppy, that's what she calls me, Poppy.
Yeah.
So Poppy and Moo. Momo. Sorry, not Moo. Oh, that's funny. Can we edit
And
that out?
so-
There's got to be something. Sorry, go ahead.
No, we got to keep that in.
That's on the bloopers reel.
So they were your primary reason that you started Letters from Dad. What was your goal? What did you want to tell them from your letters?
I had a couple close calls, like on the highway, where I felt like I should have died here. Very close calls where it maybe not died, but I should have probably been pretty seriously hurt. And I just remember thinking that I want them to know who I was through my own words. Like, I don't want them to rely upon their memory of a memorial service and my friends saying this is who your dad was, right? Like, I want them to have something to look back on when I'm gone. And that still applies today. You know, when I die of natural death in 20 years, whatever that is, I want them to have something that they can look back on and say, hey, this is who my dad was. I think back to, you know, my dad, I'm still blessed. He's alive. My mom has been gone now for 12 years, I think. I don't really remember a whole lot about their parents. I remember bits and pieces, but my kids don't know them, right? So generations from now, it's that little bit of that legacy that I want to find a way to for my family moving forward to go, this is who this guy was.
Very nice. That really is something I should start doing. That is a good way to look at that. And so that idea came from the close calls, and you started that. How did we merge that into your social media presence now, where you're a dad to everybody? Everybody that watches feels like your dad.
Yeah. I tell you what, the first time somebody called me dad, and I said, thanks, Dad, in a comment on social media, I'm like, but now it just is, right? And now I have people come up to me in public that are local that will say, hey, Dad. So yeah, so social media, man, that's such a necessary evil. I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I truly do. So 2019 happens, I stopped writing, and it took 3 to 4 years. I want to say it was 3 years, because it was 2022 and I had that breakthrough in therapy and the creativity started to come back. And as that trauma started to process and that funnel started to clear up and that creativity started to flow again, I started to write again. And as I wrote the first one or two, I don't remember where I was on social media at the time, but I was like, my boys now are teenagers. They're not going to read this, right? Like they might read it now, but I want them to know now who I am, right? So I want to impart these messages to them now. I don't want them to wait till I'm dead 20 years from now to come back and read who Dad was when I was a kid. So I want to have these conversations with them now, and I want to pour into them in a way now. And so I started just recording little videos, and I would send them to them at school, or I'd write them a little post-it note. I'd find a way to sneak it in their backpack at school. And as I started to share them on Facebook, I started the Note from Dad brand on Facebook, and that just grew to a couple thousand people like within a couple months. And I started to connect with other dads across the country who my messages were resonating with them. Like, oh man, I really needed to hear that. And also with young adults who are growing up without a father present or without a strong, positive male influence in their life present. And they would just be, we started a little bit of a community. And as that community grew, I stepped into, and the TikTok's really where it took off. I don't explain it. I don't know how to explain it. It's a God thing. With 25,000 followers on TikTok now, and I can post. It's funny because I say that love-hate relationship with social media. I can post something on TikTok and Facebook, and it'll go viral on TikTok with 300,000 views, and 6 people will see it on Facebook or Instagram. And it's like I don't know. I just throw it out there, and I'm starting to understand that for me, and it's taken me a little bit to get to this point with social media, where I'm starting to just because I started to get wrapped up in like, oh, this can be something. Let's grow these numbers, right? Let's get more likes. Let's get more followers. Let's get more. That video performed well. Let's do another one like that. And I found myself in that trap of almost performing, as opposed to just showing up and pouring out my heart and saying what I felt God wanted me to share. And so now I've just kind of pivoted. I've kind of rolled back my presence there just to be like, hey, it's whatever God puts out. If 1,000 people see it, awesome. If 10,000 people see it, awesome. Whatever. I mean, it's gonna. If one person sees it, whatever, man. It is what it is. It's not up to us. It's the same with sharing our testimony and trying to point people to Christ. It's not up to us, the results and how people respond to the message. It's just up to us to be faithful to the call to share and let the rest be what it's going to be.
I know this is just a funny little thing to say, but I swear, Jason, just hearing your testimony from all you've spoke about, I swear you must have prayed for patience at some point in your life. I will never pray for patience, but I swear you must have done it at some point.
Unfortunately, yes, I have. And I say unfortunately because I have also learned that when you pray for something like patience, God gives you opportunities to develop patience. Oh,
I
my
have
goodness,
never prayed that prayer.
I know. I have. I did very early on. And I don't remember who was like, I literally, it was probably a prayer group with some guys. And I'm like, yeah, I just need some patience. And one of the guys was like, well, if you pray for it, he's going to give you opportunities that grow your patience. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? It's like, well, he's going to put you in a situation that requires you to either be patient or to blow up. And it's your choice what you're going to do. And I'm like, wow, like mind blow. I'm like, I've been doing this all wrong.
I have literally been in a prayer group and somebody pray for patience or understanding or one of those, concrete concepts that we're always trying to strive after. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's my response.
Yep.
Because he's going to give you the opportunity. So when you're doing a note from Dad, when you're doing those little videos, is there like a list of topics that you're thinking, these are the ones I've got to hit. These are the concrete emotional lessons I want to teach people?
So I'm not really. I am getting better about developing a plan, like ahead, because what I have found is if I just go post something if I'm posting day to day, it's no different than recording this podcast. Like, right, we're recording this today and it's going to air at a different date. The reality is, I'll record a video and I might not actually post it for a month. Yeah. It just depends on, if I've got something to go in there. And now I'm getting better about developing a cadence and a calendar and a schedule. I've done that really well with my newsletter. I just launched the newsletter a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago. And that's a weekly Wednesday morning. It comes out. It's on Substack. In that right now, I went through and I broke down 4 key areas for men specifically. It's targeted towards men and fathers, not necessarily kids or youth. I broke down the 4 key areas of a man that we struggle with for men. And one of those is career and identity. And I said, for 12, we're going to break that down over 52 weeks out of the year. So for 12, for the first quarter, for the first 3 months, here's what that cadence looks like. And I've got that content. I've got the topic built, or like the title and the topic already built out for the whole year. And then I'll just go in. Right now, I'm currently like 5 weeks ahead in actually writing the newsletter. Social media has been a little bit more of a challenge for me in that regard, because I truly have a love-hate relationship with social media. I'm passionate about writing. There's nothing I hate about writing. I love writing. Social media is a love-hate relationship because I see the evil side of it. I do. As a dad, I see it. As a consumer, I see the negative aspects of social media. And as a guy in the fire service, I spent 3.5 years as the deputy chief of community relations, where I was the social media guy. And so that's the other portion of that hate portion of it, where it's just like, that's all I did. I feel like that's all I did for 3.5 years was post on TikTok and Facebook for the fire district. So, it has a tendency to be such a time suck. And I'm so distracted. Like, I'll see a squirrel and I'm chasing after the tree. It's literally the movie Up. I'm like Doug in the movie Up, the dog. I'm going after the. And so as soon as I go into Facebook, pick the platform. It doesn't matter what it is. As soon as I go in there to schedule or post something, I get distracted by the first reel that pops up, and next thing I know, I'm doom scrolling for 20 minutes. I'm like, "What are you doing, dude? I can't remember why I came here." And so that's the love hate relationship. So I still struggle with that. I understand that's where the audience is, though. And that's the love portion of it, is because we are building, I believe, a pretty strong community of support for fatherhood and for that niche of consumer within. But it's easy to get sucked into the consumer. I think I did a video a couple months ago that literally said, it talked about that briefly. It was like, hey, you need to prioritize time with your kids. Put the phone down. Stop watching stop watching right now. Hang up and go engage with your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So you launched something called Five Arrows Forge. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that actually came out of the book. That came from the book. So as the social media presence grew, and I had the idea to write the book, I was overwhelmed by the book, writing a whole chapter. And somebody said, hey, just go write a chapter and do an anthology. And I'm like, I don't even know what an anthology is. What is that? And it's like, you get like 40 dudes together and each of you write a chapter, and that's all you got to write. And so that's what we did. And so as we put together the anthology, meeting with those guys and having conversations with those 35 co-authors in that book with me really started to open up for me the possibility that this could be so much more. And truly, they encouraged me. Several of them were really stout encouragers and supporters in the reality that this can be, like, what you're doing can be so much more than just a note from dad. Like, the note from dad is really cool. How else can we build a community that is strengthening and truly empowering? Because the book is one thing, the social media is one thing, but what tools and what resources can we truly give them to prepare the men who are struggling, who are overwhelmed, who are burned out, who are stressed, or they're overworked, they're tired, they're disconnected from their families, all these things. How can we meet them at their level to empower and equip them with the resources and the strategies they need to be successful in the things that we're talking about on social media? It's one thing to say to a guy on a 30-second reel, hey, this is what's going on. You're tired, you're burned out, you're stressed out, blah, 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 blah. Or go find time to connect with your family. And then we just keep scrolling, right? And it might sit there for a minute, but we don't actually have now the practical steps. I always said that about the message. Whenever I go to a Bible study or a Sunday school class or a sermon, and listen to a message, like it's really cool to hear history of biblical history. I'm the type of person that's like, how do I apply that? Like, okay, so Moses did what he did. He got the 10 Commandments. It's great to know that history. What can I take away from that that's going to help me this week? And that's kind of where the forging and the iron sharpens iron kind of came out. And the 5 arrows came about because Psalm 127, I think it's verses 3-5. I should know that off the top of my head, but I'm brain farting. Psalm 127 says, quivers or arrows are like, children are like arrows in the quiver of a soldier. I'm summarizing. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. And so scripture tells us that our kids are like arrows and that we're blessed when our quiver is full of arrows. And so that's where the 5 arrows comes from, is 5 kids.
Love that.
Yeah.
Jay, your work is a testament to turning pain into purpose. What is the one core note from Dad you want every first responder listening to right now to take away to protect their well-being and family legacy?
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one. There's so many. You are not what you do.
The identity crisis. I love that.
You are not, yeah.
Yep.
You are not what you do. That your identity is not wrapped up in firefighter, paramedic, nurse, doctor, police officer, first responder, veteran, active military, all of it. Construction worker, none of it. It just applies for everybody. You are not what you do. And at the end of your career, what comes next, if that is all you are? I have seen men leave this career and die because they have nothing else outside of here. I have seen men leave and live thriving, successful lives because they walked out of here with not a plan, but they walked out of here with an identity outside of what we do here. We actually had a guy here that he retired probably 10, 15 years ago. You know, when you're young in the fire service, you wear the shirts everywhere. You put like we got all the swag, right? And we're just proud of it. Like I'm a firefighter. I'm a firefighter. Everywhere we go, I'm a firefighter. I'm a firefighter. And this guy was very adamant. This is not who I am. This is a job. Like I don't want people knowing I'm a firefighter. I don't care about it. It's just a job. It's a means to an end. And the reality is for us that when we look at this as being the end all be all of our identity, then we walk out of here and we don't survive. We just don't, because then the trauma sits there and it comes out and we don't know what to do with it because we don't know who we are. And we've surrounded ourselves with people in the fire service, because I've also known guys that walk out of here and they're disgruntled 6 months later because nobody's reaching out and calling them. It's like, dude, like the world keeps moving. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing against you as an individual. I still like you. I still think about you from time to time. If you want to as a retiree, if you want to stay connected to the guys in the engine house, you have to be the one that makes that happen. You have to be the one that comes around, because we move on. If I saw that anywhere specifically, I saw that when I stepped into the office and took the promotion in 2020. My support system within the fire service kind of crumbled a little bit because I stepped into management, right? I'm no longer in the trenches with the guys. And it took me a long time to find a support system outside of that. And now I have it. I have a whole thriving life outside of what I do in the fire service. The best visualization I have for that is in 2020, I'm the deputy chief of community relations. I'm in the chief's office. Guy comes in, he's putting in his retirement papers in. Been with us for 25 years. We spent 40 minutes in the chief's office, crying, sharing stories, laughing, high-fiving, all the things, and very emotional, all about him, right? Like, it's been a great career. We're going to do this for you. This is what the retirement party is going to look like. Let's make sure you get your outsourced paperwork going, all the things that make him feel like the top of the world. Like, you're it, man. There's nothing else. The world revolves around you. Door closes. Literally 30 seconds later, we're talking about who's next. Who's going to replace him? 30 seconds. Like, the door closed, he was out the door, and I turned around, and he's like, all right, we're going to start the process. And it's the reality. The world moves on. We think we're the center of the world. We think that the fire service, EMS service, law, this place is going to fall apart when I leave. No, man, it might struggle for a couple minutes depending on what your position in the department is. And I saw that with the fire chief. Well, years ago when the fire chief left, I'm 3 fire chiefs later now, but he's been around for 20 some odd years. And everybody was like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And there were things that come up that, only fire chiefs do, every 6 months, every 3 months, once a year, you got to renew something. You got to sign some paperwork that nobody knows. There's things that fire chiefs do that they just do because they got to be done and nobody knows they do them. And eventually the state sends you a letter and says, hey, you forgot to renew this. And we do it. And then it gets added to the to-do list for next year so we don't forget it. Like, at the end of the day, we're replaceable. And the world's going to move on. And if you have wrapped your identity up in what you do, that world's going to come crashing down real hard.
You're exactly right. Well, Jay, I think this is a good spot to end. We have had a fantastic conversation. This has been a ton of fun. I love hearing your stories. This was absolutely excellent. So tell us all the places we can find you and where we can find your books and your media and everything else that you do.
There's so many, but I'm in the process of trying to consolidate everything. Right now, the easiest place to find me would be online at 5arrowsforge.com. 5 is spelled out. So 5arrowsforge.com. There you can find the books, both books, and all the other links. On social media, the primary social media is A Note from Dad. I've not yet built up the following on 5 Arrows Forge. I'm trying to find a way to bring the two of them together on TikTok and pretty much any, I mean, you pick the social media nowadays. I say that. You can't pick the social media because I know there's social media out there I'm not on. It's crazy. These kids nowadays, they're all the time switching around to new stuff. So
You're
TikTok,
exactly right.
Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all those I'm on as a note from Dad. And then the 5 Arrows Forge is really kind of is where I'm taking most of the business side of what I'm doing for the coaching and the speaking stuff. The Note from Dad blog is still there. You can link to that from 5 Arrows Forge. But if you just wanted to go read the blog and see some of the stuff I wrote years ago, that's there as well.
Well, awesome. I look forward to editing this episode because that's my favorite part. I love to listen to our conversation back. It's strange how the mind sometimes just is involved in the conversation, but once you hear it back, it does something. I mean, you catch pieces of it that you're like, wow, that was really impactful, and I didn't even react or I didn't catch it.
Yeah.
So I always enjoy the editing part. As Jason said, you can find us in all the similar places. You can find A Silent War Within, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. But of course, we stream on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and Podbean. You can catch us in all those places. We really appreciate you listening to us. If you want to check out our website, asilentwarwithin.com. All right, so Michaela, close us out.
All right, guys, I think that's it. So be safe, take care of your mind, and we will talk soon.
You've been listening to A Silent War Within. If this episode resonated, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, you're not alone and your well-being matters. It's time to end this silent war.